Hey everybody, it's Mike. Can you see me? Yeah, I can take these off. With Mike Young Real Estate, and I want to do a video. I got like uneven lighting on my head there. On what's going on with people saying that the solution to the housing crisis is to build more houses. That's what this video subject is, and I want to specifically state that with the way things are now, at least in the United States, in most places in the United States, and I'll exclude Houston when I'm talking about this, most everywhere has zoning, with a few super rural exceptions. And I believe it's the zoning that's the real problem. Because even if you build, zoning restricts the marketplace. It strangles supply. And when I say this, I'm not just talking about detached lots, like we're walking around here, there's some detached houses on big lots, right? I'm not talking about that. I mean, that is a factor, because like this lot, I don't know, it's like 5-10 acres. If you could subdivide it into, like quarter-acre lots, you get a lot more houses on there, but you have to get approval from zoning. It may not even be possible. So, but what I'm really talking about is in the city. Like Denise and I go to New York City, and believe it or not, there's a housing crisis in New York City. It has been for decades. And how have they tried to solve that? By rent-controlled apartments, right? You know about this? Yes. And it hasn't really worked. There's massive waiting lists for these things. They will never be able to satisfy the demand. And if you look at the root cause of that problem, which is similar to what the rest of the nation is going through, because a lot of people are leaving New York City, so the rest of the country is going through it now. The problem is the restrictive zoning, because they have tall buildings there. We've seen them. There's like lots of real tall buildings. But you know what? If you let this real estate market in New York City go with the free market, and I haven't been to these, but they end up like Hong Kong or Dubai with much taller buildings on average, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's what the market would bear. The market wants more people in the city, not less. So when you restrict building heights, and most of these lots in New York City, believe it or not, have building height restrictions, then you're going to dramatically raise costs. Whenever you clamp down on zoning, make things less and less dense, like the area we're in now, costs go up. And that's whether you're talking about the suburbs or the city. Like actually, DC? We're actually outside of DC right now. I'm recording this video on a hike. Did you know, Denise, I think you know this, no building can be higher than the Washington Monument. So, what is it, 5 stories?
I don't know, I was going to say 10.
Okay. Well, no, it's not 10. I think it's probably like 5 or 6, because it has to be shorter. Yeah. Well, it has a massive impact. That's why you don't see any skyscrapers in DC. It's why one of the reasons, a major reason why the prices are so darn high around here is because you're not letting the market fill in the demand in the city as the market would want to see it, right? And then you go out in the suburbs, beyond here, actually, across the river in Maryland, there's lots of restrictive zoning, 1 house per 25 acres. And they clamped down on that decades ago. So you've got pressure on both ends, in the inner city and in the distant suburbs. And then, so what you got in the middle is just a bunch of really expensive housing. That's what you got around DC. You've had that forever. And this market has not really taken off like Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Wake Forest, Cary, like where I do most of my business. That market has really taken off. And it's weird because there's almost no zoning restrictions. There are some, but hardly any compared to this area. And they've got lots of land that doesn't have many geographic boundaries in all directions. But people are moving there in droves, actually. Just so many people are moving to the area. That demand, there's not that kind of demand around here, believe it or not. And people that are moving to this area can afford to pay the outrageous prices. But they also haven't seen the massive price increases around here either. But going back to what I was saying about demand and building more housing, the real issue is not just say build more houses. It's not like, the cost of materials is ridiculous right now, although it keeps coming down. And as I said before, I think you should wait like a year to build, a year to do anything probably, a year to buy, a year to do anything. It'll be a different world in a year, like a very pleasant world. The interest rates might be higher, but the prices of everything will be lower. And in terms of building more houses, you've got to let up on the zoning. Like we're involved in a project also called Nomad Nation, and they're starting in Raleigh because actually Raleigh dropped, I believe, the minimum square footages and other things on dwelling units recently. So it's made it like a hotspot for tiny houses and alternative housing styles and just whatever you want to do, like kind of what I'm talking about. Instead of over-regulating, they chose to under-regulate. And if you want to build more houses and you're in an emergency crisis, that's what you have to do, is get rid of the regulations so that you can build whatever you want.
They can't just get rid of regulations.
Well, they can. That's what Raleigh did. That's why we've got,
Yeah, 'cause
they just said, hey, we're getting rid of these minimum regulations. Now you just go do what you want.
Right, they had a housing crisis.
Yeah, but they didn't do it specifically because of that, I don't think. But maybe they did. Maybe they're just that forward thinking. Most of these governments are more concerned about, electing their leaders, and they're concerned about the next election. That's about it. They don't really look beyond that. Just take, for example, the printing of all the money we've had in the last few years. Same thing. That's what's caused the inflation. And of course, it caused a run on housing, a run on any hard asset because of the inflation. Actually, we're going to try to walk here and clean our boots off. Caused a run on hard assets like real estate because of the inflation. And it's put pressure now on changing zoning. Let me walk down here too. It's really brought that to the forefront. No one's really talking about this, but let me know your comments in the description below, in the comment area, about what you think about just getting rid of zoning. That's what Houston's done. Just got rid of it. Do whatever you want, wherever you want.
You can have a strip club right next to a daycare.
Yeah, or have a high rise out in the middle of the suburbs, distant suburbs. You do whatever you want, right? The market will ultimately determine if you're going to sell that property. You're not going to do something ridiculously stupid because you want to sell your property. Everybody sells real estate eventually. Nobody holds it forever. So that's what I think is the real solution to this housing crisis, is just get rid of zoning. I mean, because you're going to lower most of the people that own a lot of real estate, I own some. But who's really going to resist that is big owners of real estate, because what's going to do is cause the value of their properties to plummet.
Yeah, I can charge less rent.
Yeah, less rent. The rent's been an issue, less to buy and sell. But then the average person, the average Joe and Jane, will actually be able to afford to earn a wage and pay for housing at the same time.
It makes everything better. Then you don't have to wait so long for service in a restaurant.
Yeah, but the other thing to think about with this is also it'll change neighborhoods. Instead of having exclusive neighborhoods where it's big houses, you'll still have these gated communities. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to build some apartment complex right next to my nice half-acre lot or whatever, And you can do that if you don't have zoning. Or you could still do it anyway, but it'd be harder to do it now, much harder. But if you got rid of zoning, that could happen anytime, anywhere. And maybe we need that to meet the demand. So think about that. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.